So, how do you cast vision in the church? This isn't a podcast about creating vision. This is a podcast about having the vision and then communicating it. How do you communicate vision? My name is Tom Rayner. This is Church Answers Podcast. I'm with my co-host Jess Rayner. One of the reasons that I like the fact that Jess is on here, not only because he's my son and don't have to do these solo, is because some of these things I see him do in action as my pastor, and we'll be talking to him about that. But there's one key word, and it's redundancy. It's redundancy. The key word is redundancy. Just remember
Great
that.
dad joke. Thank you. Thank you.
Redundancy. And before I get caught on another dad joke, welcome also our sponsor, Cheney and Associates, the CPA firm for the church, the firm that has over 1,100 church customers. They know the church backwards and forward. They're going to keep you out of trouble. They're going to do all your books well. You're not going to have problems internally. Oh man, give them a call. Give them look at the link in the show notes to Cheney and Associates and just contact them. Man, you're going to be pleased at what you see and the service that you get. Have you met Steve Cheney yet, Jess? I didn't know if
I don't recall if I have.
I don't recall either. You got to meet him. He's one of a kind. I mean, he's an entrepreneur CPA. That sounds like an
That's
oxymoron.
rare.
Yeah, he's done so many things entrepreneurially. He's just kind of at the cutting edge, and he was with one of the big six, big four. I can't remember what number there are now. And he just said, I'm going to do this on my own. And he does it in such an entrepreneurial way. And he now has this nice sized company in California. And man, they are good. I love them doing things for the church. But anyway, we're going to talk about the redundancy of vision being a way to communicate the vision. And Jess, I don't recall being in a service where you were preaching or giving announcements, and maybe there's another teaching pastor at that time, and you said something like, we exist because everybody needs the hope of Jesus. You just put it out there again
Well,
and again and again.
yeah. Well, you're showing that you don't have a long-term memory, because I learned this lesson by not communicating the vision. Being a church planter early on, you ride the wave of just your vision as being a church plant. Well, about a year, 2 to 3 years into the church plant, I really didn't communicate a powerful vision. That being a church plant is not a vision in of itself.
Yeah.
But what I learned very quickly is that when I didn't regularly communicate a vision, when the vision void existed, something or someone's going to fill it. And so I learned this the hard way.
That's a great social media quote, whether it's X or something else. When the vision does not exist, something else will fill it, and it's not communicated, I should say.
All yours. You can have that. So I learned this, and so I saw something happening in my church that I wasn't too happy about, and it just became a lot of preferences and not a lot about a unity. And so I went around and asked my key leaders the question. I says, why do we exist as a church? Why does the church at Spring Hill exist in particular? And I got biblical answers, but I didn't get unified answers. And that was a big moment to me to realize I have got to not articulate, I had to develop a vision, but then I also had to learn how to articulate that vision ad nauseum. And that was eye-opening for me, is that I feel like I say something over and over and over again. And then I realized some people are like, I don't remember you saying that. It's just amazing how much you have to communicate the vision, because it doesn't. The reality is, and kind of bumping ahead a little bit here, is the problem with not communicating the vision on a regular basis is because you have an infrequency of attendance. I think what's the average attender now? It's like a little over once per month. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. In fact, by most statisticians and researchers, an active attender is defined as at least once a month.
Okay.
That's an active member. We used to call those people inactive. Now it's called an active member.
So I early on in ministry as a lead pastor, I would think if I said it, once a month, just kind of keep reminding people about it was enough. What I realized, if I said it on the weeks where someone wasn't going, so I mean, think about it. If I only said it once a month, there's a good chance 3 or 4 months will go by where one of my church attenders, if the frequency is a little over once per month, doesn't hear it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reality is you have to say it. Whatever, wherever your church is headed, wherever God's leading your church, you have to say it at least weekly. On top of that, I believe you have to say it multiple times throughout the week through different venues, through different ways. Even it's just there's so many different ways you can communicate it, but there has to be intentionality. There has to be redundancy. People who go to church are being bombarded by so much information on a daily basis that it's very if they're not hearing it over and over again, the message they are hearing over and over again is going to replace it. And
Yeah.
so communicating the vision frequently, weekly, multiple times a week is absolutely necessary.
And I will say, from my perspective as a church member, listening to you as the pastor, the times that I usually hear it are in the worship service, before or after the sermon, maybe sometimes even during the sermon. You'll talk about the vision of the church. That's when you have, I can't say you have unmitigated attention, but you have a lot of it. You have a lot of attention on you at that point, and that's when you hear it. But I see it in the uh, emails that you send out. I see it on the website. You don't have just one venue that you're communicating at one time. You have multiple venues in which all of them you're communicating at multiple times.
That's right. By the time you walk into the worship, and so just thinking on a Sunday morning, by the time you walk into a worship service, you will have seen, by the time you sit down, you have seen our vision statement at least 3 times.
Wow.
Um,
On the wall.
so, well, in the parking lot. So we have a one of our signs. It says, we exist because everyone needs the hope of Jesus.
Mm.
Assuming it's hopefully put up the right direction. We have that.
They'll know it
Have it
on
on
the
the
way
worship.
out then.
You're going to see it either on the way in and way out. Sometimes the sign gets reversed. I have to remind, hey, you could just turn that sign around. But
Here, turn
you
around,
see it in the
please.
parking lot. You should be seeing it in the parking lot. Then you're looking at the worship guide. It's right there on the worship guide when you see it. It's on the screen. What pre-service. Hopefully, people come before the actual service time starts. That's a whole other thing. They see it. They're going to hear it during the welcome. They're going to hear it reiterated during the sermon, and they're going to hear it as the service ends. And each time, though, we may say it specifically, we exist because everyone needs the hope of Jesus, but we might also use other ways of communicating the vision. A Bible verse is one. We end the worship service with the same Bible verse. I think we've done it for 4, 5 straight years now. I have to think about it.
I love
It's
it.
Matthew 9. And Jesus looked upon the crowds and he saw they were distressed and dejected like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, "Go and pray. The harvest is abundant, but the workers are few." That reiterates our vision statement that we exist because everyone needs the hope of Jesus. And so we're constantly using that messaging to continue to remind people, why do we do this? Why do we exist? What's the point of this? Why are we growing ultimately so that they can know the hope of Jesus? So over and over and over again, we do our best. And it all comes from learning a mistake early on. And hopefully hopefully I'm doing it better than I used to do.
There are two things that I want to review in the little time that we have left. One is, a lot of pastors tell me they get sick of hearing themselves say it
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again, but everybody else is hearing it one time, or one time a month, or one time a week, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And when I hear that, and I've been there, I would challenge this. If you're sick of saying your vision statement, you're not passionate about your vision statement. It
Mm,
might be time to change your vision statement. If that's truly how you feel about it, your heart isn't in it. I
mhm.
love saying our vision statement because I believe, in fact, as I'm sitting here in my office, I know there's a road right to my left. There's thousands of people driving by the front of our church building every day that don't know Jesus. That passion is what fuels me. It's why I feel like I can say it over and over again because I want them to know the hope of Jesus. So if you're in that boat and you're tired of saying it, it's time to evaluate the why behind it, because you have to be motivated and passionate about what you're saying. Because if you're not, people aren't going to buy it anyway.
Well, the last thing that I'll just wrap this up with, a good vision statement is going to have some element of it that is other focused. We have
Hmm.
plenty of things in the church that are about the unholy trinity of me, myself, and I.
Hmm.
And what you began to see in church at Spring Hill, when you weren't articulating and the vision statement was not known, was people began to ask, "What are you doing for me?" And that's a summary of what happens when you don't have a vision statement. But you remind them, us again and again, we're there because everyone needs the hope of Jesus. And that means it's up to us to be the vessels to communicate and to show the love of Jesus.
It's got to be inspiring. It's got to motivate. It's got to give people the reason. And then to me, it trickles down. Every ministry. Why do our students exist? Why do our kids exist? Why does our facilities team exist? Because everyone needs the hope of Jesus.
And if Jess keeps throwing these nuggets at us, you're going to want you, the listener or viewer on YouTube. Thank you for being there, watching us. And for those of you who are listening on your favorite podcasting app, thank you. If Jess keeps coming on these things, you're going to want him just to replace me. So I might have to give him some time off every now and then so that I can feel like I'm needed at some point. Hey, thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Steve Cheney and Associates, y'all rock. Y'all are great. Thank you for being the CPA for the church, over 1,100 churches that they serve. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. Come on, we got more great ones to come on the Church Answers podcast.